Let's talk about leveraging your grant dollars. All right, and I've already had, since the break, 3 questions on exactly this right here. Can I spend my money on this? Some yes, some no. Let's talk about what you can spend it on, okay? Now, on your, if you got the event thing on your cell phone for NASBLA, open up this presentation. There are attachments there. Those are your handouts, okay? There's a thing in there that shows you what the state guide says you can spend money on and other things that you can spend money on as a reference, okay? They wouldn't let me print anything. I have to go paperless. So here you go. This is the new electronic age. I'm 63 and I'm still learning. But I have gotten into the 20th century, okay? And yes, I know it's the 21st. I can count, kinda. All right, so how do you spend your money? What can you spend it on? Regulations on, guidance on, policy on, allowable cost. First and foremost, and this is in order of precedence. The top thing that says what your dollars can be spent on is Title 46 of the United States Code, Chapter 131. If it ain't in there, you can't do it. Period. It's not open to discussion. Regulations we can discuss. Regulations we can amend. That takes an act of Congress, literally. So it's just like the aquatic invasive species piece. This is the conversation we have more times than not, and I get its importance. But 46 U.S.C. 131.06 tells me I can't, because it is not included in the list. And the way U.S. Code works is it either tells you exactly what you can do, or it omits something, so you're kind of out here in this free space. But that's not the case in this statute. If it ain't in this statute, you can't do it. Period. We have no authority to grant anything different. I get the conversation, I don't disagree, but this is what tells me what I do. Okay, the next piece. How many of you know what the regulation is without looking up front? Anybody? Come on, somebody's got to know what the grant regulations are. Okay, Vern. There you go. How many of you been in the training? Those of you whose hands are not up, go. We provide it to you for free, all right? You really, if you have anything to do with the grant, as the BLA, as the finance manager, as the grant manager, as the education person, you need to go to this, because you need to know what your limitations are, or more importantly, how wide open it is in certain things, okay? You need to know 2 CFR 200, up one side and down the other. If you knew 186, A110, A87, all these OMB things out there in this universe of the White House and OMB, Office of Management and Budget, none of that exists, none of it matters. This is what they call an omni-circular. It includes everything. And the thing of it is, with the states in particular, there are certain things in this world that simply don't apply to you, that applies to the nonprofit side of the house, okay? Because by and large, like when you're buying stuff or getting rid of stuff, the regulation tells you the most important thing, do it however your state does. Because there's a lot of federal things that you have to do if you're on the other side of that wall right there talking with the nonprofits. At the state level, because you are under your own state constitutions and your own stuff of how you do things, you follow your state guidance for that. There are some places where your state guidance is not real good. I get that. But at the same time, you look in 200, it ain't there, or it tells you defaults to the state, have a nice day. And that's where that discussion goes. And when you look at subpart E, those are the cost principles specific. It tells you what grants are allowed to pay for. Now, there are some things in those cost principles that they tell you you can't spend money on that the statute does, which has precedence. What do you listen to? Statute, exactly. Which comes in to policy, where we explain stuff. In this case, the state guide. And that is the primary purpose of the state guide, is to help you execute the RBS program from a programmatic and financial standpoint. This is where if you've got questions or you need other guidance, you don't understand what the regulation says, you go to the state guide and it's going to be pretty clear. And then if you still have questions, then who do you call? Yeah. Gary. Yeah. Depends on what you're calling Gary for, right? Gary sometimes goes, yeah, you can do that. And I go like, no, you can't. You know, and that's the discussion that Gary and I have frequently on things. Yeah. No, okay. That's a conversation I just had at lunch with a certain Mr. BLA from the wonderful state of Oklahoma. Yeah, don't try to make it flowery and reword it to get inside the regulation or inside the guidance. Yeah, that doesn't work. But at the same time, if it deals strictly with a financial thing, by all means, it's Gary in that side of the house. If it is programmatic, in other words, he tells you how much money you have and how much he's going to reimburse you, all those kind of fun things. What we tell you on the state program side is we tell you what you can spend it on, okay? We're the ones who make those interpretations. And we don't do it in a vacuum. We talk all the time. That's because he'll get a question, he goes, can we do this legally? And then he will hash it out, and we do a real good job, especially if we have a difference of opinion, we go through it back and forth. And I mean, we get into some pretty interesting discussions with that and go different places. And we get to a result that's in the best interest of the state. And that's where we go. And it's like I was just talking with Ty on an issue he just asked about. Let's talk it out, explain it, articulate what you're wanting to do and how it connects to the RBS mission. And then I can tell you if you can do it, number one, and number two, are you going to have to prorate it? Are there elements of it you can pay for, elements that you can't, and the source of the funding that you can use? And that's how we have these discussions to figure it out to get you the best bang for your buck, okay? So, all righty. So, what do you spend your money on? What can you buy? Boats. What kind of boats?
Any kind of boat that's used for recreational boating.
Say that one more time.
Any kind of boat that is used for recreational boating, safety enforcement.
Or what? We'll come back to that, but with the boat, not just law enforcement. You can use them for education. What else? Nav aids, training, search and rescue. That's pretty much the list right there. But that's what you can buy, okay? Now, think of it as when we start talking about boats, can you buy vehicles? All day long. Yes, 4x4s, cars, okay, towing vehicles. Can you buy ATVs? If it's pulling a kayak. That's not far from being correct. Can you buy an ATV? Yeah, oh no. no. Okay. Okay, when can you buy an ATV? Could be, if you're in a real rural setting, like you're in about as rural as it gets, but so is Nebraska, you know, because if you're towing a boat there, okay, fine. What if you're not towing a boat? Can you get an ATV?
Patrol.
What kind of patrol?
Boating safety patrol.
Okay, how do you do boating safety patrol on an ATV? Huh?
By the river.
Beach, by the river. How many of you have small rivers that people are boating on that you can't get to in any other way but by ATV? Yeah, exactly. And all of you have defended that purchase. But that's the key. Don't just tell me you're buying an ATV. Tell me how it relates to the mission and what you're using it for. Okay? Again, it doesn't have to be 15 paragraphs worth of information, but explain it. We have remote lakes, remote rivers, remote bodies of water that we can't get to with a a traditional patrol vehicle. Fine, I get it, okay? We have some northern tier states that buy snow machines, okay? Because they have open water in moving water, but they can't get there with a four-wheel drive, an ATV when the snow's 1.5 feet deep, but they have people on the water using it up there and they need to go look. They're fishing, they're setting traps, they're doing all kinds of stuff, okay? Now, if that water is now solid, and you're going to go out there and inspect ice fishermen, that's not recreational boating. I don't care, and no, you can't use money for that. But at the same time, the ice breaks and the fishermen are out there, and they have a boat, because most of them, the way they get across the ice, what do they push across it?
They can't check the downhill skiing kayaks?
No. But an ice boat is nothing more than a 12 or 16-foot john boat that they're pushing across the ice. And if the ice goes and they get into that boat, they are now in a boat, they are boating, and you need to rescue them. Can you have an ice boat? Sure. And an ice boat, and I'm talking about the ones that are powered with the big old airplane engine on the back. Okay? They're basically hovercraft or airboats, just with enclosed cabins so you don't freeze to death. Those types of things. But again, it's percentages too. If you're going to buy, let's say, a truck. You're from Nebraska. What are you going to use the truck for? Hmm? Okay, such as? Such as? Okay. What else? There you go. So, how much of that truck can you pay for? Yep. There you go. You have to prorate it, okay? You have to prorate. If you're a multi-mission agency, you've got to look at, and you can do this a couple different ways. If you're doing it as a resource for a specific officer in a specific area, okay, then you have to look at that specific officer's time distribution, okay? And you need to look at it every year if it's for a single officer. And you base it on the previous year because obviously, again, we're going back to that whole crystal ball thing. You can't predict the future. So look at what they've done and determine how much of their time is actually spent in RBS, whatever that set of the mission is. If you're going to do it as an agency, then you take an average of the agency, okay, and determine your percentages. And that one is not so much necessary that you have to do it every year, but you have to do it often enough so that if somebody comes to audit you, you can defend what you're using for your numbers, okay? But time distribution is the key, and you need to know that. Two ways that's determined. Time distribution sheets is the number one. If you want to do a different method, it has to be approved by us first before you can apply it, such as, I mean, almost everybody nowadays has electronic time distribution. Got it. That's the way pay systems work anymore. But before that was there, and for some of the smaller outfits that are out there, like some of the islands and stuff, they're still working off of a paper pay system. So what they have to do is look at how many citations were issued in that, time period by percentage was law enforcement for RBS or other stuff. And they determine a percentage. 4 times, there's a formula for that. You take that number, multiply it by 4, okay? Divide it out, and you come up with your percentage. That's in the state guide how to do that. But again, before you use that you have to have that approved by us, because that's not the way we really want to go. It's when we've compared by doing it both ways, it's usually within a few percentage points normally. But it also depends on how well your system records your citations. Okay, so that kind of depends, all right? Okay, so what else you can spend your money on? Vehicles, boats, what else? Life jackets. Why can you buy life jackets? For what reason? Education? Law enforcement officers? Yeah, PPE for anybody that's involved in the RBS mission, certainly. Okay, anything else? Loaner stations, okay? Liable expense. What else? Anything else? Huh? Handguns. Can you buy handguns? Ammunition. Uniforms? Okay. Okay, education materials. Let's go back to the stuff that we're talking about here with uniforms, bullets, and all this kind of stuff. If you're a multi-mission agency, what do you have to do? Prorate it. It's a real simple answer, honestly. Okay, so stuff for education. What else?
Training.
What kind of training?
Officer training.
What kind of officer training? Huh? Yeah, you need to tell. Yeah, Army training, sir. Anyway,
Specific to RBS.
such as. Okay, paddle sport training if they're patrolling in paddle sports.
Accident investigation.
Accident investigation. What else?
Part of PWC training.
PWC operations training.
Part of airboat.
Huh?
Part of airboat operator.
Part of airboat operator. Yeah. Okay. How many of you are in the certification program through the boat program? Okay. What courses can you not pay for with RBS funds? Say what? Yeah, no, that's not in there. Which one cannot be paid for? Port security, TOC. The tactical side of the house, that's general law enforcement, that's other stuff, it's Homeland Security, it's all tied to that. It is not part of the RBS mission set. Okay? It's just like when we get involved in a boating accident. You do the investigation, you go out, you rescue somebody, that's search and rescue. Once the search and rescue is called off and there is a body somewhere in the water, what does it become? That's recovery, and that is not an allowable expense under the RBS program. Now, one of the questions that comes up with that, because that creates a lot of heartache, I get it. How about if you want underwater robotic sonar to go look for a body? It does normally because they're expensive, but can you buy that? Yes, why?
If it's an RBS-related incident,
And?
and it is for the investigational purposes.
Bingo. That's the key. It is not a, quote, recovery like dragging and all. It's part of trying to determine what happened in the accident. It's evidence gathering, and yes, you can buy it. But you've got to do what in your narrative? You need to articulate it. How many of you in law enforcement, and I know everybody's going to raise their hand on this one, have you been told repeatedly, if you're going to do something, what do you have to be able to do? Yeah, yeah, we call that articulation, okay? But yeah, you got to be able to articulate in a court. If you're talking about developing reasonable suspicion, probable cause, you have to be able to articulate that. Same thing in accidents, boating enforcement. If they're reckless, okay? Reckless, or what we call negligent operation, thank you. Went right on my head. Grossly negligent operation. There's no description of it, so you have to be able to do what? Articulate it. Okay? Just like you got to articulate in front of a judge. I mean, that's how it works. Okay. What else can you spend your money on? Huh? Can you spend it on drones? If you can articulate what?
Investigate the
I'm sorry?
For either enforcement purposes
Okay.
or investigation purposes.
Yep. Search and rescue. Yep. Just be able to articulate it because there are uses. Okay. Can you buy drug sniffing dogs? Ooh. Huh? Okay, no. Anybody say yes?
What if it's for impaired enforcement?
How are you going to do that? Explain it to me. What is a dog going to do for you for BUI? Yeah, okay. The reason I bring this up, we tried that one year with Missouri State Water Patrol. And they bought dogs. We helped to pay for the dog food, the housing for them, everything else. Because they said they were going to use it for being able to detect drugs and BUI on a boarding. A year later, they came back to us and said, yeah, that didn't work. We shouldn't have done that. So it doesn't work. But we were willing to listen and give it a try because they articulated the reason. But the reality is that was a non-starter. It didn't really work, okay? So that comes down to policy. We develop policy for what we say is part of the RBSS mission set. We talk about those things, we come to an agreement, and if we don't agree, in the new state guide, what do you have available to you? I've said it a couple of times now during the week. An appeal. It's a formal appeal process to appeal what we've said, or what would the determination we made. And what do you have to do in order to be successful in an appeal? Articulate. Okay. What else can you spend your money on? No, go ahead.
A canine officer asked me if we could pay for training for his dog to do search for, bodies. Cadaver search.
Okay, so.
And he was talking about, boat related.
Okay.
But it was for cadaver. It was cadaver, so obviously there are.
Okay. Now.
I said I don't know.
Is it part of the investigation or is it recovery?
Yeah,
That's what you're going to have to determine. If it's recovery, no. Okay. If you already know what's happened and how it happened and you're doing a recovery, the answer is no, because it's no longer search and rescue. And if it's not part of the gathering of evidence, then no.
But if we can articulate for investigation.
Yep. It may, but you need to be able to articulate that for yourself. Correct. And you need to be able to articulate that on behalf of your program, because if you can't, and again, it goes back to the whole, protection against audit, then you're like, well, that's not what this list says you can do, that kind of thing. Yes, sir, Scott.
What about if you try to associate that with a search for a missing person, not recovery?
Search from a missing person, yeah.
Recovery at the point.
Okay, so what is it still at that point? No, it is not part of an investigation searching for a missing person. What is that? That is search and rescue, and yes, it's that, again, articulating it back to the program. It's still search and rescue. Right, so if we're looking for them a year later, no, or if they're way beyond the ability of survivability. So like you lose somebody over the side, and the Coast Guard does this for search. Okay, so they will search up to a certain percentage over the probability of survivability and detection. Okay, and again, that's more to placate public opinion, families, and everything else, as opposed to an operational type of thing. But once it is no longer reasonable for survival, it becomes recovery. And that's up to you to articulate that and make that decision. I can't make that for you. The Coast Guard can't make that for you. U.S. Code states very specifically search and rescue. Recovery is not there. And when we talk about into the grants piece of it, like recovery, and I take recovery from a holistic standpoint, like hurricane comes in, and now you're into full-blown recovery because of all the boats, all the damage, all the stuff that's out there. Everything that you do, putting your boats out there in the water for all this hurricane reset, recovery, all that stuff is non-chargeable to the program. It is not RBS. Okay. Search and rescue that occurs with a boater in distress during the course of a hurricane is one thing, but recovery from all of that is not. So like if you have flood boats, how many of you have a fleet of flood boats that you load up on a truck and throw in a river? No. That's not part of the RBS mission set. Okay? And all that support structure for it. Now, if you use them for this and for that, what do you have to do? Thank you. Y'all get it. This is awesome. What else can you spend your money on? Okay. In your agreement, one of the paragraphs in there says you will participate in dealing with meetings just like this, trainings, whatever. All this stuff, this is the RBS mission. This is stuff that we do. Your grant training that you do for the state grant program. All of that is chargeable to the state RBS grant program. Travel here, all of that stuff related to being here. You can charge it to the grant. We expect you to charge it to the grant. We have had to, because there are some states where their finance piece is like a central hub finance for the entire state and everything that goes on. They go like, oh no, we're not paying for that. And you can't use your grant money for that. And we end up writing letters, yes you can, and yes you will. Okay, we do that. We can write letters, we can have phone calls, we can have Zoom calls, we can do visits to try to explain it. It's not always successful, but we're willing to give it a shot for things that are allowable expenditures in the program, okay? So, if you can't spend your money and you're having a problem with it, who do you call? You call your state program coordinator. You call, yeah, who are you going to call? Me. You can call your district RBS specialist, who are going to call us. You can call Gary. You can even call Cynthia, who's now in the back of the room going like, don't tell them me. No. But call us. We will try best we can to help you spend your money and give you ideas. But the thing of it is, there is a laundry list of things you can spend your money on. If you can tie it to the RBS mission legitimately and prorate where you need to, there's all kinds of things you can spend your money on. Leverage that money. It's free money to you. Okay? Again, the amount of money you get, you spend 100% of your state money, we can reimburse up to 50%, not to exceed the allocation you have for a given year, or any money you've collected. How many years do you have to expend the money that we've given you? 3 years from date it is made available to the state. Okay? Plain and simple. Okay, I got one last question for you. You want to build a new small office and a dock strictly for use by your agency for the purposes of being able to get a boat on the water for the RBS mission set. Can you buy that piece of real estate? Okay, sure. Articulate what you're doing with it. Now, here's a trick with real estate. Where we tell you that the boats and the equipment and that stuff, you know, once it's yours, you invest it, you use your state tracking system. Real estate is the one exception to that. No, we can't come take it from you. Okay, but you have to report and track that every year, where, you know, that you still have possession of it. Okay, when you go to sell it, and you do sell it, for whatever you sell it for, you have to reimburse this program the percentage of the cost to originally purchase the property. So, if it cost you $50,000 for that piece of real estate, okay, and we paid for half of it, 50% of it, okay, 25 years down the road, you sell it for $400,000. You owe us $200,000 back to the program. Great discussion. Okay, Gary, you're on, my friend.